You're listening to the Modern People Leader podcast, where we go behind the scenes with today's top HR leaders and work experts. We talk to them about how they've gotten to where they're at, what they do every day, and what they see coming next for the future of work. Hope you enjoy. Brandon, welcome to the show. It's great to have you.
Thank you for having me. It's really great to be here on a cool Friday in Seattle.
It's always good to have on the guests that are like from the extended MPL network. And so for our listeners, Brandon is an intro that we got from Frank Conchu. So Frank came onto the show maybe like 2 or 3 months ago, and he was like, there are a few people that I think that you should definitely have on, and Brandon, you were one of them. So happy to have you here. We have a lot of exciting things to discuss.
Yeah, fantastic to be here. And Frank's a great colleague and a great friend. So nice to hear
Like
that reference come from him.
the ultimate connector. That's how I think of Frank.
He is spot on, 100%. He really is.
Yeah. Well, we start every episode the exact same way, and that's with something that we call good news stories. So we all go around and we share a good news story. It could be personal, it could be work related, just a way to start the episode on a positive note. And we like for our guests to go first. So if you've had some time to think about it, feel free to jump in. If not, if you need a stall, we can chime in.
No, this is great. A feel-good story. So frankly, a feel-good story that comes top of mind to me just happened last week, and it may sound a little silly, but we had a gathering in Vegas. ATD has a conference called Tech Knowledge, and I went to it, and I went to it in my new role too. So I'm Chief Learning Officer at Docebo now. So I went representing Docebo, and kind of a new pivot for me in a lot of ways because I've been in corporate for so long, and now I've transitioned to the SaaS world and the ed tech world. So it was great to just be together and not be with a bunch of little rectangles on a screen. Not that that's not what we are right now, but the Zoom meetings and the Teams meetings and all of these things day in and day out, they have a tax to you in some regard. And so it was a great gathering just to be with some fellow humans. Several I haven't seen physically in since before COVID because of just everything that's been happening. And it was an intimate gathering, 300 or 400 learning experts from all sorts of different industries and backgrounds. And it was just great to be with people in a setting where we're geeking out with learning stuff. So that's my feel-good story for the week.
I'll go next. I'm going to go personal. And for the people that are watching the video behind me, I typically record these podcasts in my bedroom, which is also my office. And I know I need better boundaries in my life, but it's where we're at. And if you look behind me, there's a drum set that out of the kind of randomly, my fiance was like, you know what? I want to learn to play the drums. And I thought she was joking. Well, she was already taking lessons, and she said that we were going to rent a drum set. And I thought it was going to be like one of those electric ones. Turns out she rented like a full-on drum set. And
it's not electric.
For the musicians out there, like there's a feeling you get, and I'm a former drummer, full disclosure. So I play the drums. I was in marching band, drum line. So played drums for like 12 years. But when you've been away from something for like 15 plus years, it doesn't quite work the way it used to. So it's been, I don't know, 2 months since I've been playing. And finally this week I had the feeling of just being in flow with the music. Like it's a hard feeling to describe, but when you find yourself, the music's just kind of flowing through you, the drum beat, and you're just locked in, you're dialed, the bass line is bumping, and you're just kind of hitting all the notes. I finally, after like 2 months, 3 months of practicing, I finally hit that place. And so that's my good news story.
Fantastic. I love that.
All right, that's hard to follow. Let's see.
It's not a competition, Daniel.
I'm gonna stick with since today we're gonna talk all about AI. I'm gonna give an AI good news story. So there's somebody that we've worked with that has helped us with our social media, and the previous service that they offered us was like taking like original thoughts that we had and turning those into a social media format or turning it into social copy. And so an idea that we have for her is like, how can we create different AI driven like automations within our business? So not only social media, but like, I'm just making up examples here, but like an agent that does our bookkeeping or an agent that does our scheduling. I don't know, I'm just making up examples here, but the first use case that we're working on with her is to create an agent that basically takes over our social media. And I've tested it out today and it's freaking amazing. Like it's so, I don't have the technical expertise to like connect ChatGPT with all of these different tools and create like an automated like streamlined process. And seeing her do that work really inspired me because I think that there are going to be 10 other applications for our business that we're not even thinking of. And I think like this is like some of the pioneering work that I feel like a lot of people are maybe like scared to do or don't know how to do, or they don't know how to find the right people to do it. And we just got lucky that we met this person a year and a half ago. And so I'm feeling inspired. I'm feeling honestly just like really excited because I feel like there's so many things that we could do, that we could build with Maddie. And yeah, I'm excited about it.
I love this. A day of gratitude. I love it.
And
I'll just add that I just went and watched the Led Zeppelin documentary last weekend. So when you think about drumming, I'm thinking about John Bonham, and yeah, Bonzo could drum.
Oh my goodness. That's one of my, I actually have his, so for the Zeppelin connoisseurs, I have, their fourth album was like a symbol for each band member, and Led Zeppelin, John Bonham's, his symbol was 3 circles, concentric circles. And I actually have that like tattooed on my back. And it was the first tattoo I ever got when I was like 19 years old. And so, yeah, I've been throwing down some John Bonham beats, but those are hard, man. Some of the OG guys, like they knew what they were doing, and
they could hit it hard too.
They really could.
I love that. All right.
Well, enough about us.
The more that I think about it, the more I realize that for AI to actually be useful, almost all of work needs to happen digitally. And I actually had this realization when we were grabbing coffee with Annie Dean, who is the VP of Team Anywhere at Atlassian. We were talking about RTO mandates, how companies are pushing for people to come back into the office, but at the same time, they want to adopt AI and they want to work more efficiently. But these two things don't really go together. She pointed out that AI is only as good as the information that it has access to. So if your team's knowledge is scattered across random email threads, sticky notes, and conversations that never get documented, AI can't help. But when everything lives digitally, like within a tool like Confluence, AI can really become a game changer. And that's exactly what Atlassian's new free guide to AI-powered knowledge management is all about. It breaks down how AI can help teams organize, share, and find information effortlessly. This guide lays out real ways that AI can make work faster, easier, and more connected. So if you want to grab a free copy, just click the link in the show notes.
Today, Brandon, we want to talk about you. And I know that you've done some pretty amazing things in your career, and you've worked with some pretty amazing brands. And so we call this a Brene Brown question. Like, what's your story? Like, what was the journey that has led you to become the Chief Learning Officer at Docebo?
Docebo. Italian company, Italian name meaning to learn. Yes. So this was a completely accidental career. I don't actually know too many L&D professionals that was their plan from the get-go. You know, when I was a kid, I was asked, what do you want to be? It never was a learning leader, right? That was never the answer, but accidental career. But I have had a great time. You're right. It's been a fun journey. I've gotten to traverse a lot of different areas, if you will. If you think about industries, I mean, I started out in tech because I lived in Silicon Valley for the majority of my life in that area. And tech companies were the companies that hired you to do these types of things. And I just moved from designing college textbooks, which was educational related, into developing what was then called computer-based training, and then just kept it going onto the internet. And of course, as all these technology transformations have occurred, it's been a humbling, fun ride, and it's never been boring. So I spent the first half of my career focused on tech audiences and sales training, leadership development, technical training, led the Java and Solaris certification programs at Sun Microsystem, did sales training at Apple, worked with Microsoft a bit when they were launching Surface Tablet back in the day. Then second half was really big box retail, went to Home Depot where I led store associate training, moved to transportation after a few years of that, where I led training for the airport operations teams at Delta Airlines, went through COVID at an airline, which I would highly recommend not going through, not working at a global airline during a global pandemic is a bit of a challenge there. But it was endearing, and it was challenging, and at the same time, it was difficult. I won't mince any words there. Then moved from that into leading leadership development and the education remit at Walmart, and then moved over to Starbucks where I led global training, as well as our cultural leadership experiences and some of our change management programs. And now at Docebo, where I'm the chief learning officer and responsible for learning, both internal and external, and working with our clients on their strategies and how they can more, think about how they infuse AI across their systems as well. And so I've just had a great time. It's been a 20+ year career, and I've loved every moment of it.
You're literally a walking Fortune 500 executive. Like all those brands that you mentioned, it's like, wow.
Yeah, and so it's been an interesting journey when you think about the trajectory of what has changed and what hasn't changed in a couple of decades, right? And it has been a technology tsunami, unlike anything you could imagine. And then navigating the complexity of work as that technology tsunami has really changed everything and is continuing to do that. So it's been quite an interesting, back in the day, we were doing training using laser discs, right?
Wow.
And now here we are leveraging AI. It's been a constant joyride of change and trajectory changes.
I don't even know what that means.
I was about to ask, Daniel, do you know what a laser disc is? So it's like
you don't remember laser discs, so yes.
I do. If you can imagine, do you remember DVDs, or is that also okay? DVDs.
Yeah, I remember DVDs,
but like album size. So it's like not the small little guy.
Oh,
it's like
record
a
size.
Big guy. Yeah.
And you had to turn it over still. It was ridiculous. It's like the vinyl records back in the day, right? But these are like thick. And I remember being all excited when they came out and getting them. But I also remember the VHS and beta wars in the 70s. So, hey.
Well, we're going to talk about technology tsunamis. There's a big one going on right now. And so I want to get into that. And, I'm just so curious, having been through, so many technology shifts and having worked in so many different brands and so many different industries, I'm really curious to pick your brain on what's happening today. But before we do that, Docebo, hopefully I'm saying that right now, I'm sure a lot of our audience may not know what you all do. And so can you give us like the 30-second pitch on your business and the work you guys do at Docebo?
Yeah, Docebo is a powerful learning platform. I would argue the world's most powerful learning platform. If you think about how capability spreads across an organization, we're literally serving up capability to hundreds of thousands of employees across the globe. And it's really about driving the business of learning. And that's one of the big things that have changed over the years is corporate learning is moving from really just focused on compliance and, making sure we keep everyone out of jail at companies. It's become the oxygen of the enterprise. I often say learning is the oxygen of the enterprise. When we were going through COVID, I had several executives talk to me about, we need to be a learning company now. Well, we are the original learning company. So we provide the platform that allows our companies or enables them to deliver scalable, personalized learning to not only their employees, but their customers, partners. So it's really about making sure that ability is, democratized in a way that makes sense across an organization so that, so that it leads directly to business value. That's what we provide. So I would say we're the top cloud-based AI platform for learning.
Learning is the oxygen of the enterprise. I love that. So one of the benefits of running a podcast like the Modern People Leader is we often get a sneak peek at some pretty cutting edge research or articles that people are putting out. And I think maybe like a month and a half ago, you shared this draft of this playbook that you were going to eventually put out. Turns out you're actually putting that out today, which congrats. But there was one part of it, there was a sidebar from one of your colleagues, Trish Uhl, I believe is her name. And
Trish
she
Ewell.
laid
Yep.
out, yeah, Trish Uhl, and she laid out the next 10 years and what that's going to look like from an AI standpoint. And that, like, really created a sense of urgency in me. And like, one, I need to understand what's going on. And two, I need to figure out how to get from this phase to the next one, to the next one, to the next one, because it's not going to slow down. And so I guess just to like, I don't know, show people leaders how important this is to figure out, like, can you, in your mind, like, what do the next 10 years look like? What, I know like today we have chat GPT and generative AI is like the main thing that we're familiar with, but like, how is that all, what's it going to look like in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years?
Yes, and let me preface with it is great timing. You're right. So the first part of the article that myself and Marcus Bernhard wrote together came out today. So it's kind of ironic. This wasn't planned. I mean, I knew we had planned to be talking together a while ago. And we decided to go ahead and put the first part of this out. It's a 7-part series that does result in a playbook. And the genesis of this was Marcus and I got together and we were thinking about a lot of people are asking questions, getting into forums and talking about, hey, what should we be doing, especially from an HR function or L&D function about AI? I mean, it's taken all of our mind space for a couple of years now, and we're all trying to figure out how we want to approach it and what impact will it have across the workforce and across the business. And we wanted to get a little bit more thinking about not only the impact of the technology transformation that's happening, but how it's actually helping to generate different ways of thinking about work itself. And so part of this series that will be coming out is we're going to be talking to other experts as well. We're trying not to make too many predictions because we all know what predictions, not all of these predictions will come true, but we are trying to be a catalyst in helping HR leaders and L&D leaders think a little differently about what this means for not only the workforce, but what it also means for business and competitive advantage. And so one of our underlying principles here is we really do think that we're at an inflection point where what we do from a learning standpoint with our workforce, both our human workforce and our intelligent machines and the AI components of our workforce, what this will mean for them as it applies to realizing competitive advantage. Because we do firmly believe that if you are not on this journey to what Marcus likes to refer to as AI literacy, to AI fluency, then that will impact your ability to remain competitively advanced, your competitive advantage in the market. So we invited Trish in, and Trish is going to be in one of our subsequent parts of the article, the playbook that comes out. And we talked to her a little bit about what is the urgency of the moment. And she really firmly outlined these 4 horizons, if you will, on where she thinks about not only is this reshaping the workplace, as we all know, it's going to transform how we think about work in general across organizations. And so her first horizon is what she calls them. The first horizon is what's happening right now, what's happening in this year and next year. And I do want to be clear, we see a lot of the AI race, if you will. We see a lot of what's happening in the tech world. The tech AI race is not necessarily our AI race in other industry sectors. The tech AI race is a different story, but we look at that and we can see what that means for our near future, if you will. And so right now, what we need CEOs and learning leaders and HR professionals to recognize is that there are going to be components of AI that collaborates with the workforce in their work, right? And it's going to require an integrated approach where AI adoption is closely aligned with workforce development. And that's the key message that Marcus and I have in the article as well. And Trish is doubling down on this, of like, you cannot continue to invest assertively in transformations such as AI without also developing, investing in development of the workforce, the human workforce, because this will be a collaborative transformation as it goes and as it unfolds. Training and reskilling are crucial to this competitive advantage. And so over the next 5 years, an increasing portion of the workforce is going to need to be reskilled and upskilled. And we've been talking about this for a few years now. And in the industry, we've been focused pretty assertively on this idea of becoming skills-powered organizations, which makes a lot of sense. But we really have to get more urgency in how we're looking at not only skilling the workforce and making sure that we have capability in the right ways so that humans and AI can work well together, but thinking about what I like to refer to as work intelligence. L&D and HR has this inflection point moment where they need to be more focused on helping to re-architect the meaning and the way of working completely. Because traditionally, if you look at the last 50 years of corporate HR and L&D, we've been put into this sort of role of being an overlay onto work systems that exist already or that are created by other people, right? Workforce planning or, whoever's in charge of that. We're usually the go-tos to like, okay, now you have to train the workforce on how to do the work. A very manufacturing age kind of model, right? We can't sustain that type of operating model as we move forward. And so what Trish is really saying in her part of the article, and what Marcus and I also are saying, is that we need the function of HR and L&D to be much more focused on helping to design what the future of work really is and how it comes to fruition for both the intelligent machines, the AI agents, whatever we may have that are collaborating with the humans, instead of being on the reactive end of like, okay, all of this is already decided and let us put an overlay onto that, if I'm making sense.
That does make sense. And when I look at where it feels like companies are, and when I read, meaning very early in the adoption, when I say very early, like lots of companies have not even adopted yet. They're still in the kind of ideation, brainstorming how they're going to do things, right? Hence why the series that I think you guys are working on, you're putting that together, because it feels like a really painful struggle for companies right now. But yet, in the research you shared, I saw a stat, I think it was a PwC stat, where AI will add nearly $16 trillion to the global economy by 2031. That's 6 years from now. 16 trillion is a huge number, and yet a lot of companies aren't even using AI note takers. And so I want to dig into this overlay kind of. I think that's a good way of looking at it, because I joined the workforce in 2000. And in 2000, the internet was a thing. and we all had computers, we all had PCs at Ernst & Young, but it wasn't embedded. The internet wasn't embedded into all of our like business processes. Like 90% was still offline and 10% was online. But the solution was, oh, we're going to put everything online. You're just going to access, instead of going into our intranet or, you know, our internal stuff. Like now there's all these web tools, and then Web 2.0 happened, and this feels different. And when you look at, you know, I'm curious, in your research, have you guys found, what are the reasons that companies seem to be blocked on this? What are the main things that companies are grappling with? Why is this so unique and so different to kind of the internet digital transformation that companies went through?
Yeah, it's a great question, Stephen. And, you know, there's a confluence of challenge and opportunity, as we see. And you see these stats on economic opportunity or, you know, economic value, right? And you're like, wow, it is mind blowing. One thing that's obviously different is just the speed at which things are happening and unfolding, right? And it doesn't mean that it's going to continue at this rapid pace, but it doesn't look like it's slowing down anytime soon. And so I talk about this AI race that every company's on, and how it really will separate you from competitive advantage, right? And the reason why is, if you think back, as humans, we've constantly been on a journey of transformation. I mean, if you think about the telephone took 80 years to become ubiquitous, right? And then how quickly did 100 million people adopt ChatGPT? It was 2 or 3 months, right? So if you think about easily within a century, right, how we are looking at what technology can transform for us as humans, right? So that rapid change is challenging when you think about especially large corporations who are beleaguered, if you will, by infrastructure challenges and data challenges and all of these artifacts that are necessary to drive the business value that will come through automation and intelligence in the workflow. There's a lot of work that needs to be done to build up the infrastructure to support it. And candidly, that's one of the biggest challenges. If you think back just under a couple of decades, the biggest, most significant transformation we've ever had in the world of business that is unlocking all of this opportunity was our move to the cloud. And if you think back to how we moved to the cloud, it was pretty fast when you think about it. And that's why a lot of our IT cohorts are sitting here with that look on their face all the time. That was a really big assertive move to where the majority of corporate data and infrastructure is in a cloud environment. And that happened in less than 2 decades, if you think about it. And then if you think about the internet in general, to your point, when you talk about the internet, we connected 2/3 to almost the entire world to the internet in less than 40 years. And so remember, telephone, 80 years to ubiquity. So it's like we've had these exponential advancements with technology. But that's what is hindering a lot of what you see in the corporate world right now, is this assertive race, if you will, to restack their infrastructure to support what we need to happen, right? From the true efficacy of all the technology that's happening around AI. What you will see now in the next decade is a relentless focus on productivity and efficiency. We're not yet looking at AI to solve some of the world's bigger challenges. You know, we're not looking to, I mean, we're not seeing a lot of investment in climate change technology or in solving some of the bigger problems with cancer, for example, all of that. You saw Microsoft's notice the other day about quantum computing. I mean, we're on the cusp of a lot of potential opportunity there to solve the bigger problems. But where companies are right now, you're going to be seeing them automating tasks, optimizing processes, trying to get their data house in order, and trying to do that as much as possible so that they can translate this investment into higher output. It's going to be really all about productivity and efficiency over the next 5 to 10 years. And then the industry's impacted. Every industry is going to be impacted, but you see some that are going to be impacted more than others. You know, it's what retail, healthcare, manufacturing, all of these sectors of the different industries. So we do think things are moving fast, but we can only move so fast until we, pay back our debt on the infrastructure.
From siloed systems to onboarding chaos, HR leaders dropped their biggest tech nightmares in our first ever live webinar with Ian from ChartHop the other day. It was awesome. And, the verdict coming out of the webinar, disconnected data and rigid tools are holding HR teams back. But there is some good news. ChartHop is truly built for the HR builders. So if you're wanting to do things like automate onboarding workflows, connect HR and business data, creating a true single source of truth, like no more fragmented systems, and you just want to nerd out with a flexible solution, then ChartHop is for you. We saw the platform in action on the webinar, and it is legit. It's really built for the designers and the builders out there in HR. So if that's you and you want to learn more, go to their website, request a demo, and just let them know that we sent you.
Got it. Yeah, and that's a perfect segue to the next question, because what I'm hearing from you also is that how work is done, or the potential to do work differently, whether it's Gen AI or like AI bot, like some of the more futuristic things that you guys share in your article, that it's a crazy number. Something like 40% of the total global working hours could be affected by AI. Like what? That's global working hours. So that is hard to wrap my mind around. Like what exactly is meant by that? I think that ties back to your productivity point, and I think we're about to unlock huge source of productivity. But share a little bit more about what you guys have found, like where that number came from.
It's a great point to pull out, because that's exactly why we're saying, and I keep saying it over and over, I can't say it enough probably, but that's exactly why we're connecting not only investment in intelligence in the workplace, but also investment in developing people, because it's going to tie directly to your competitive advantage. And you can see it manifesting itself already in just the productivity and efficiency metrics. But if we think about how AI really does bring around this unprecedented lift in the workforce's ability to be more productive and efficient, it takes on more of the routine tasks we're always talking about, and even the subtasks, right, that people do and spend a lot of time on and drudgery on, frankly. It's really going to unlock a lot of opportunity for the human workforce to be actually doing more of the creative envisioning, in the creative thinking, in the critical thinking about what other types of opportunities the business can drive into and drive toward. We're facing, I would say, in no other era in modern history have companies both faced this unprecedented challenge of blending and I say this in the article, but blending the smart technology investments with needing to, in almost real time, develop their workforce to not only collaborate and leverage that investment in technology, but to also design new ways of working and new types of jobs and new types of opportunity, not only for the business to advance itself, but to advance humanity in how we think about work and how we drive purpose and meaning behind our work, right? So it unlocks a whole new way of thinking on what work really means for humans in the age of AI.
That 40% number, I think for us at Modern People Leader, it's probably like 80% of our working hours, maybe even more. Like anytime that we're not in a meeting, and even with our meetings, I feel like that's being augmented by newer tools that we have. And so that, I guess, leads me to my next question. And, you alluded to we need to design new ways of working. And for a company like Modern People Leader, where we have 2 people, that's pretty simple. Like, I teach Steven some things. He teaches me some things. We meet people like Maddie, and boom, like all of a sudden we're like 10x employees because we have this tool set. Yeah, I imagine it's not that easy for a 12,000 person company or better yet, a 200,000 person company. And so, like, how does this all tie to corporate learning? Like, you've already alluded to this a little bit, but like, what does the next wave of corporate learning look like?
Well, it really brings up a lot of questions. And I go back to my earlier comment about the manufacturing age. So in some of our organizational design, in some of our structures inside of companies, we have a couple of big challenges we need to solve for. And one of them is how we have organized what we call corporate learning and development, what we call HR, right? How we've placed that in an organizational structure that in a lot of ways inhibits its ability to really be connected to the business enough and connected to what the workforce needs enough to be able to drive what I connect to that competitive advantage. There will be no skill more important than to be constantly and consistently learning. And so when you think about the value of learning, and Ed Bastian, the CEO of Delta, once told us, we need to be a learning company. Our CEO at Docebo has told us that we are now a AI-powered learning company. And so what this means, though, is how do you unleash that capability across the enterprise in a fashion that, or in a manner that makes it doable for the workforce, but also allows them to understand how they can deliver true outcomes, right? The reality is, in today's world, not many people understand the work itself. I would argue there's not a lot of people in HR and L&D that deeply understands the work enough to really understand how the work needs to be re-engineered. And that is an inhibitor for us, because in our practice, which traditionally is known as the people practice, we need to be at the table. And this colleague of mine, Mark Ramos, has actually said, no, Brandon, we don't need a seat at the table. We are the table. And every CEO needs to understand that the learning function, the HR function, we set the table. And so to set the table the right way, we need to have deeper understanding of how the work should be re-engineered to amplify the humanity in the work, and to make sure that the intelligence that we bring into the work systems amplify the humanity of the work, but also is done in a way that allows the collaboration to have meaningful outcomes and impacts for where the company needs to go for whatever reason, whatever their outcomes that they seek are. So we need to be able to help reinvent the work, be more responsible for it and for the outcomes of that, and create a work operating system that is conducive to what the workplace needs and the workforce needs and the business needs. Business needs jobs done, not necessarily skills created, right? So how do we bring together this virtuous cycle? And with HR in a reactive mode a lot of time, or L&D being in a reactive mode, providing the overlay to deficient or inefficient work systems that are already there, that doesn't allow us to really bring forward the best impact and outcomes that both the AI, the artificial intelligence, and the human intelligence can bring to drive that link to business performance, if that makes sense.
That makes
So this,
Go ahead, Daniel.
being the only person in this call that's never been an HR practitioner, this might be a dumb question, but are you saying that the learning function will need to be like more embedded within the business and have a deep understanding of like what each person is doing every day? And if they have an understanding of all of those different workflows, then they can figure out like where they could augment. And for one person, maybe it's a salesperson, maybe they realize that they're not doing basic things like recording their meetings and putting that through some system that's like spitting out a summary and helping them with next steps and helping them with sales follow-ups, and maybe isn't even like good at like automating some of the workflows in Salesforce. I don't know, I'm just making something up right now, but is that what you're saying?
Yes, you've got a spot on comment there that triggered something on my mind. in most of the organizations I've worked in and worked for, we always would talk about the scale of what we do, right? The scale of large employee bases. You know, we get a large number of people working here, or we have a large customer base, or there's things that we need to produce, like our employees are producing at scale. What I'm saying is AI enables us to scale to one, right? Because most companies now, when they're operating, if you've got 10 employees, or like you have modern people, you have 2 employees, you have 10 employees, you have 1,000, you have 100,000, or 1,000,000, right? Or more, your systems and platforms are going to, by default, now operate at scale, because we have built that into how we build software and how we bring intelligence forward digitally. And that's been a great output of the digital transformation of the last 2 decades. We build to scale. Now what AI allows us to do is take that ability to just by default be at scale, but scale back to one. So that individual, like you're talking about, that salesperson, what they need in that moment, they have a moment of need and they need something, and it should be available to them in their context to help them. That's what we call augmented performance support. So you are being provided through intelligent work systems, whether it's actually in the digital or physical environment, whether it manifests itself as what we now call agents or agentic systems. In the way that happens, it provides you that support at that moment of need, and then can help you reflect and synthesize later so that you actually do transfer that performance support into reusable knowledge, right? And so what we're basically saying is HR and L&D needs to not be focused on just updating employee skills. We need to be in the conversation and probably driving the conversation in some respect on reimagining how humans in workplace intelligence will effectively work together. And that means that we need to re-architect how we think about work. We need to re-architect the work. And that's happening. And a lot of what we're going to see happening over the next several years are going to be these steady, but almost like whispered evolutions of these work systems. And a lot of companies are doing that. They're infusing smartness, intelligence into the digital systems and the physical systems that employees work with. One of the biggest examples from several years ago I saw was I had just moved to Atlanta. I was new to Atlanta. And if you think Atlanta and you think soda, you probably think Coca-Cola, right? Because that's the corporate headquarters of, I remember learning never ask for a Pepsi when you're in Atlanta, because it's kind of hard to find one. But we would go to movie theaters back in the day, and I would see these Coke machines that allowed you to, on the fly, in just a few seconds, customize all the syrups you want to create your own type of Coke right on the fly, right? And what an invention. It was fantastic. And we've all used that over the years now. However, what happens when trouble comes to the machine and you have a line of customers who now have an expectation that in just a few seconds they can custom craft their own drink? That's become an expectation now. If something happens to the machine, what is that frontline worker's responsibility in solving for that disruption or problem with, and do they have the capability to solve for that? And so I was asking this question because I encountered one of these machines. I was talking to a friend of mine that works at Coke, and she's like, oh, that's no worry, because these machines are all self-healing. They just connect to the internet, they download what they need, they fix themselves, and they go. And it was been a few years, but it was mind-blowing to think that, okay, now we're approaching this combination of intelligence in the workplace, and the employees at whatever level or type of work they're doing, they're having to interact with the intelligence of this. And yeah, sure, it may connect the internet and fix itself. Something may go wrong and it may not be able to do that. Then how do we build this interaction between the intelligence and the employee and the customer, that trifecta there, to make sure that the experience that the customer expects can be delivered to them? And that's the biggest challenge right now, in that we have to reimagine roles and job descriptions, if you will, and tasks and all these things that make up that employee experience and customer experience so that we can reduce the seams and all of that. And so it's just a little example, but it's actually kind of big when you think about it, because these are moments that really genuinely matter, and to everyone in that trifecta, right, including the machine itself, right? So it's just an example of what this means, that L&D, HR can no longer exist in a silo. We've got to be woven into the core strategy of the business so that we can have conversation and direct input into how these jobs are being changed and re-architected as we infuse more intelligence into the workplace.
I love this conversation. I mean, Daniel knows, if we were to rewind like 3.5 years ago, there was a 6-month period where I couldn't let it go, that what we were debating was scalability of learning systems. And it was either the options for HR executives were either LinkedIn Learning, well, insert any other online learning platform, or classroom style in-person learning, maybe with a virtual component to it.
Yeah.
And there were really smart people that came onto this show and said, if it doesn't scale to thousands of people, I'm not even looking at it. And I just thought to myself, that's crap. Like, and no offense to these people and the thoughts they had, like, I respect everyone's opinion that we meet with. Like, these are really smart people that know a lot more than me. But one thing I do know, no one is using the LinkedIn Learning. No one is planning their professional development around these online courses. We do it because we have to, because that is all that is available. And to think this concept of scaling back to one, or however you refer to it, is great. And to me, that summarizes the power of AI. Like, the thought that today we literally at scale can provide tailored learning experiences to every single individual is such a great place to be. But yet we're now dealing with these other challenges, these organizational challenges, these operational challenges, these legal compliance, DEI, all of these challenges. I mean, it seems like the list of challenges to kind of break through keep building and building. And so I want to talk a little bit about the winners and losers in this shift. And I'm just going to leave it at that. Like, what's at stake, and who do you think, the winners will be? Like, and not so much like individual names and companies and brands, but like, what are they doing right now to get to that winning edge and to really stay there? And then on the flip side, like the companies that are getting there quick enough, like, what does that look like, and what should people avoid? The practitioners out there.
It's a great question, and I love where you riffed on that, because you're right. We've been on this 2-decade journey, right, of building out these scalable systems, and now we're able, because of all of that work, we're able to think differently. And that's one reason I loved Docebo and wanted to work with Docebo, is because that's how we're viewing it, of this scale to one. We're thinking about that individual in their opportunity to perform at not, just optimal performance, which we always talk about in L&D, but to be able to grasp their ability to perform at their maximum level is really just why I wanted to do it. Like, I wanted to do it because, candidly, even when I worked with Yahoo, I worked with Yahoo for several years back in the day. And we used to talk about, we serve up web pages. We used to say, we don't build churches, we build cathedrals. We had over 1 billion users who would be looking at our content, right? And it was like, it became such a big number that it didn't even mean more than like one, right? So it's like, how do you make sure the experience unfolds? So I love the fact that now we have this ability to meet that worker, that performer, where they are in the moment, and give them that adaptive and contextual lift to be able to serve them in that moment in the right way. So, and you're right, we have pockets of challenges, like I talked about, data infrastructure, technology infrastructure. We have all of these corporate systems, procurement models, organizational structures, all of these things that have taken 60, 70 years to create that we need to rethink very rapidly, right? So to your point, the companies that, or the organizations that reach that ability to drive more competitive advantage are those ones that are prioritizing, and this is going to sound funny in the age of AI, but they are they are prioritizing the humanity in the work, and they're amplifying the humanity of the work. Mm-hmm. And because competitive advantage is going to come down to, regardless of how much intelligence we have in our systems, and I talked about the next decade of being about productivity and efficiency, that means that the intelligence that is being infused into the work systems will be driving a lot of that productivity and efficiency in collaboration with the human workforce and human intelligence. But the reality is, by amplifying the humanity of the workforce and the humans in the workforce, and by ensuring that we're building capability in the humans, that's where we're going to find the competitive advantage to happen, because they're the ones that are going to be able to envision the future of the products and the services that the companies offer. And they're going to have, we talked about 40% on the labor hours, right? And we're going to look back, of course, I won't be here then, but we're going to look back 100 years from now, and we're going to go, we had humans doing what? What were they doing? They were toiling away at these rote tasks, when even now, if we would move faster with robotic systems, we would take a lot of that drudgery away from humans and unleash their ability to reimagine, envision how to solve some of these bigger problems for the world, right? And so I think the companies that are, it's not just tech companies too. It does not have to be just tech companies. You look at the revolution that will happen in healthcare. You look at the revolution that will happen even in the finance industry, and how you get data, how you get insight from data so quickly to help you make decisions about business opportunities or about new ventures, right? You can only imagine how more technology and augmentation will amplify humans being able to make the types of decisions that drive the competitive advantage. So we're on a journey. And I know a lot of people are worried about, displacement of jobs and fearful of job loss, and that makes a lot of sense. But any company that is assertively thinking about, these are the skills that our humans need to have over the next 5 to 10 years, those are the ones that are going to be able to generate that amplification of the humanity in the work and drive competitive advantage. If you're not thinking about how you need to upskill or reskill your workforce, you're already pretty far behind the curve.
And so you mentioned, well, I guess first, Brandon, how much more time do you have? I know we're already 5 minutes over.
I've got a little bit more time, and then I've got a call I got to take. But as you can tell, I get kind of passionate about this stuff.
What's your cutoff, just so we know when to reel it in?
20 after.
Okay, cool. So earlier you mentioned, I don't know if you said AI fluency or AI literacy, or maybe I've heard both. So I guess my first question, what's the difference between the two? And can you give like a couple examples of what it looks like for an organization to have AI literacy and how that differs from fluency?
Yes, the number one thing is how we navigate, and I hate to use the term change management, and Marcus actually is the expert in this area. But when you think about how rapidly things are changing, we have to make sure that we bring the humans along with this transformation in a way that makes the most sense for them to be able to grasp the change. And I go back to that example, 80 years for the telephone, 3 months for 100 million years of ChatGPT users. Humans are really great at adapting, and they're very flexible. But it's more challenging when you're in outdated or outmoded work systems, and at the same time, we're asking you to do things differently, but we're not changing what support you need from those work systems, right, fast enough for you to actually be able to deliver on what you need to deliver on. So getting from what Marcus talks about, from literacy to fluency, is truly a journey that we need to take our employees on, the workforce on. because the transformation of tools and roles and work processes is the central challenge to unleashing the output capability or the outcomes that you can derive from AI. So, and even worse, to add to that, these systems are continuously evolving. I mean, we're about to hear from the next series of models from OpenAI, right? And what is that going to unlock and unleash? So the skills required to be able to maximize or get optimal value from the intelligence is in flux. And so literacy genuinely means that we're going to develop the workforce to have a common understanding of what it means to be bringing intelligence into the system, and for you to be working side by side with this intelligence and actually collaborating with it more, and being okay to trust it to help you do the work you need to do and get to the outcomes you need to get to. I mean, research already shows us that we're okay getting good feedback from AI as humans. We're not okay necessarily getting bad feedback from AI. So we need to understand how humans and intelligence will collaborate together. So getting a common understanding for your organization and your context of what AI, of what intelligence means to the work is fundamental for organizations. And it's just a maturity journey you go on. And as you move towards literacy, what you're doing as the workforce is you're able to trust it. So we're reducing skepticism. So you can trust that, oh, this is a coworker of mine, or what Microsoft calls a co-pilot, right? Okay, I can actually leverage this to help me. Then to activating it, like, okay, now I'm not only using it as a brainstorming partner, I'm actually bringing it into helping me with the work I'm doing, and it's actually got outcomes to the work. It's helping to deliver on the work, all the way to changing processes and deriving more insight, and then scaling that across the team if you're a leader, all the way to achieving excellence with AI by understanding at scale the technology and how it impacts results, not just for you or for your team, but for the organization. All of this journey from literacy to fluency, as Marcus notes, is necessary to be driving that competitive advantage. And this doesn't happen overnight. And so companies need to be taking their workforce on the journey with them as they're infusing this intelligence into the work.
There's so much swirling through my mind. Like, first of all, like, now I feel like we have to have Marcus on the pod, because there's so many things that I want to ask him. And there's so many things that you were saying, or that he said, or that Trish, all of this body of work has said that is resonating with me. And we were in New York a few weeks ago. In fact, we were in New York. It was when the latest agentic model was rolled out by ChatGPT that would enable full automation, and the deep research tool. I can't remember what that's called. And Daniel and I, we were busy with work, and we met with Annie Dean. She works at Atlassian, and she's like LinkedIn famous for all things future of work, remote working. And she's just dropping bombs, and we're like, why do we feel like she is sharing information? Like, why do we suddenly feel out of date here? And it's because she had jumped on to that most recent release, and because Daniel and I were in New York for client meetings, we hadn't really paid attention. Well, it's not the point of what I want to quickly share. One of the things that we were just kind of chatting, and she was like, have you asked your bot about you? And we were like, what? Like, huh? And she was like, no, seriously, like, ask your chat GPT about you, and just like play around, ask it questions and see what it has to say about you. And oh my God, Brandon, my chat GPT knows me pretty freaking well. And the point being is, I almost feel like my chat GPT, my bot, like whatever we're calling that, is in better position to help me learn and be better at my job than any HR practitioner, HR function, any learning program designed by an HR function. And guess what? It's going to be so much faster, and it's more direct access. I don't have to seek anyone out to tell me, what do I need to do to get to the next level? It's like, all right, bot, let's go. Tell me, where are we going to go from here? What additional work? And so I don't know if that resonates at all with you, but that as I reflect on this conversation, I can't help but think that. And now I can't unthink it. And so and I don't know if that means, like, to tie it back to the conversation. So I give you a chance to be able to answer. I don't know if that's because I'm fluent or I'm literate in how to use these tools, but it doesn't feel like when I talk to people in the wild, it feels like more often than not, people look at me like I'm strange, then like agree with me. And they're like, yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. It's scaled to 1 to you, Stephen. Like I think I shared this in another episode. I gave my 2 brothers, one who's 25 and the other 35, an hour and a half long demo of how to use these tools, and their minds were blown. Like their minds were blown by like the most basic use cases. And then the more advanced I got, they were like, shit, like I'm way behind. Like, what am I doing?
Yeah. Yeah. And basically, Stephen, you described it, the scale to 1. Like, the future of sort of corporate learning is going to be much more federated in a way, because you're going to have these personalized systems, agents, bots, whatever we want to call them, right? Who are they know you, but they also know what you need to achieve, or what you aspire to achieve, what you aspire to be. And they're just going to help you on that journey. And a lot of times we have that now with other humans. Sometimes we have great managers, sometimes we have great peers and colleagues we work with and that we can talk to, but you're going to have your own personalized intelligent system. Like, as we speak right now, I literally have an avatar that's training courses. We've got an academy. It's an HR L&D academy, and my avatar has taken my content and it's instructing other people in real time while I'm off doing this, for example, right? And on my website, I have my ChatGPT bot that I uploaded all my books into. You can go talk to that bot, and it says, if you're talking to me, you get these responses back, and it's all coming from my knowledge base that I've given it, and I continually update it. So we have the ability to clone ourselves in some respect, so that we can be in different places at different times doing different things. I don't know if people necessarily will like that or not, but there are times when it's like, that's a good thing. And as long as we can control it. But in the work, it's even more exciting, because you will be able to thoughtfully integrate this intelligence, which really will help you with insight. And it'll help you to kind of, to really think about the critical thinking that you need to do. And the biggest thing for me, when you're talking about what you've done with this bot, the biggest thing for me is helping me derive insight from certain things that I'm not that fluent at necessarily, or that I really don't have a lot of interest in. I remember in the 90s, I read this book that Bill Gates wrote. In that book, he said, with programming, you either have it or you don't. It's black and white. There's not a lot of in between. And I spent a couple of years trying to think I could be a programmer, and I couldn't. It's just, I don't have the brain for that. But I could have augmented support or intelligence that could help me with those types of things. And where I found it really helps is deriving insight from data. Like, I can have tons of data sets, and I'm like, okay, how do I want to think about this? And my bot, who knows me, understands me and my skill sets and where I'm at, has a way of speaking to me about it that I can easily understand more quickly, right? So it's pretty revolutionary when you think about it and just think it's
exciting. It's
only going to get better. Yeah, it's only going to get better, right? So
maybe one day our 3 bots can have a podcast together.
Love it.
Right. Remember when we first all saw Notebook LM, and it's like they created this funny podcast, right, from content you upload into it. So yeah, exactly. Your avatar, Daniel.
I was half joking.
Yeah, our avatars may be out doing things for us, and then we can see the results of that, whether we may like it or not. I don't know.
All right, so we only have you for a few more minutes, so we're going to go into rapid fire questions. And this is the same set of questions that we ask every guest. I'm going to tweak question 1 for you. So what's one piece of advice you'd give to someone starting in L&D today?
Understand the intersection of artificial intelligence and human intelligence, because we are completely re-architecting what it means to be an L&D professional nowadays.
I love that. It's exciting times. Next question. If your team gave you a superpower nickname, what would it be?
I love to do what we're doing now, which is talk to people. So probably networking guy. I love to get out and just network and learn from others.
If you could steal one strategy from another company, what would it be?
I remember going to Apple. I worked in sales training at Apple, and we actually reported up into marketing. And so I would steal the approach that Apple takes with marketing. I just loved it, and the snarky way they write. They did a whole book on how to write Apple. Loved it.
Yeah, that's a good one. Last question. Who should we have on the show next? When you think about the best and brightest minds in HR, AI, whatever it may be, like who do you think we need to give a platform to?
Oh my God, that could be a list. Well, obviously you need to talk to Marcus. You need to talk to Trish. But I would say Charlene Lee. So she's a pioneer in AI, but she has a new book out called Winning with Generative AI. And guess what it's not about? It's not about the technology of AI. It's about how to lead, how to be a leader in the age of AI. I would recommend you check it out.
Love it. We definitely will. And before I forget, so we talked a lot about the playbook, the research, the content. Like there's some dropping today. I think that it's going to be a multi-series type of thing. You know, for our listeners out there, how can they find your work if they're interested in learning more?
Well, the first thing to do, ATD is publishing the article series. So ATD is an industry organization for training professionals. So you can find it on ATD's website, which is td.org. But I'll be sharing it on LinkedIn, as will Marcus and others. And you can always find me on LinkedIn, where I have a robust discussion with the HR and L&D community going at all times. And Docebo is also going to have it on their social as well and on our website.
And our last tradition of the show is something that we call one word or phrase close. So we all respond with a word or a few words to close.
I love that. I would say the word that always sticks in my head, my prior role at Starbucks, our leader there for several years was Howard Schultz, and he always had this phrase. He had a book with this title called Onward, and I just always loved that phrase, Onward.
I like that. I'm going to say set the table. For whatever reason, the one comment you made earlier that HR doesn't need a seat at the table, they are the table. And
Mark Ramos. Yes.
Yeah, that's why we need to bring Marcus on. But set the table.
Yeah, Mark Ramos, who you should have on, different than Marcus Bernhardt, but yes,
that's
Mark
right.
Ramos is the one that shared that. Yeah.
I'm going to be a little cheeky, and I'm going to go with the phrase, 2 words, and it's catch up. Catch up, y'all. This is moving fast. Like every time we not the Heinz bottle and not the Pulp Fiction joke if you know that movie. But yeah, catch up. Y'all. Yeah, this is moving fast.
I love it. Daniel, do you have a Longhorns shirt on?
I do.
Oh my God, you're the second person today who's had Longhorns on. Like what?
I feel like almost every day I have at least one article of clothing that has a Longhorn logo. Like yesterday it was a hat. Today it's the sweater.
Yes.
Glad you noticed.
I spent a good part of my life in Texas, so there we go.
Hook 'em.
Well, Brandon, this was so much fun. Hopefully you're part of our community now. A lot of our guests come back. I hope you would be open to do so. And I just really enjoyed and appreciate you giving us an hour plus of your time.
I loved it. Have fun editing all this, but I loved it. Thank you both for inviting me.
It's going to be easy. All right, y'all. We've got some big news, or maybe not big news. You may have heard about this already, but we are doing MPL Live in Boston on March 6th. We followed the data this time, and the data was telling us we needed to go to Boston, so we're going to Boston. It's a top 3 city for us follower-wise. We owe so much to the incredible HR leaders who have been with us from the start that happen to be from Boston. Shout out to the MPL legends like Katie Burke, Dina Upton, Jen Paxton, Adrian Barnard, Tracy Sponenberg. I mean, there are just so many. I feel like I'm leaving a bunch of folks out, but I think that just speaks to how deep the Boston People Leader bench really is. So here's what you can expect. We're going to do a speed networking session. So 60 minutes to meet as many people as possible. And if you can remember the most people superpowers from the people that you meet, it'll definitely come in handy for you, and you'll find out more on why at the event. And then the main event is the live podcast. So shout out to Katie Burke for these recommendations. But so far we have 2 amazing speakers lined up. We have Carmel Galvin, who's the Chief People Officer at Klaviyo, and we have Linda Aiello, who's the Chief People and Culture Officer at DraftKings. It's going to be a fun night. It'll be about 4 hours. And if you're in Boston and you're still listening to this ad, I think this is your sign to go grab your ticket. We'll put a link in the show notes. But we've already sold a good amount of tickets, and we're going to cap it at some point. So I'd highly recommend you go grab your ticket right now. Thank you so much, Brandon. Thanks.
All right. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Modern People Leader. We really, really appreciate it. And if you enjoyed the show, please leave us a 5-star rating. It would mean the world to us. And connect with us on LinkedIn. We want to know what you think about the show, and you can find links to both of our profiles in the show notes. Thanks again for listening, and see you on the next episode.